Everybody, my name is Mike, and today I'm sitting down with Paul, the Theastropub, and he is a player in the upcoming Neural Nexus game, and we're going to learn a little bit about him today. Paul, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So you're playing James Dunn in the upcoming campaign. How long have you been playing tabletop role-playing games?
Since I was 10, I think.
Okay.
So about 23 years now.
Ooh.
I played the original Advanced Dungeons and Dragons was the thing that got me into it.
So that was the first system that you got into?
Yeah, that was the first system I got into. I still didn't really understand it, but I because I enjoyed the books, I ended up becoming a DM, and that's how I got in. And it was many years later that I could become a player, but I was mostly a DM. So.
Rare breed, jumping right into that DM role.
Yeah, I've always fallen into it since then. So whenever someone's like, "Hey, do you want to be a player?" I'm like, "Yes,
yes."
God.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite system you like using?
I don't, off the top of my head. I mean, Dungeons and Dragons has always been, my go-to default. But I think my favorite, every time I learn a new system, it becomes my favorite, and then another system, and then it becomes my favorite. I think my favorite system in terms of flexibility and role play is the age system, which is the thing that uses like modern age, fantasy age.
Okay.
It's the thing that's done with the Expanse RPG that I've run games with them in the past. They also do the Dragon Age RPG and a couple of other things. It's very flexible, and the reason why it's really nice is because instead of like traits, you have stunts, and these stunts you can do at will. Okay. If you get a certain dice, which is pretty cool. So like you earn points, and then those points you can spend on those stunts to give you certain bonuses. Okay. So it's completely by chance, but your guy can go from like, it's like, okay, I'm gonna kick this table, or I'm gonna punch this guy, and it's like, oh, you got a stunt. Oh, now I want to kick the table, flip it up, grab it in my hand, and bash him across the head with it. And it's like, it goes from being like, I punched the dude, to like, I John Woo him to death. It adds that little bit of a flavor that I like in the randomness, which is pretty cool. That's super fun.
I've never actually heard of the system, so I'm gonna definitely have to check that out. We're going to be using Savage Worlds in the upcoming campaign. Do you have any experience with Savage Worlds?
I've heard of it. I've never played it though.
Okay.
So
it'll be a little bit of a learning curve, but everything I've seen from the system so far, it looks to be super streamlined and a really easy system. And with your experience in the TTRPG world, you're not going to have any problem picking it up.
I'll pick it up, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I crunch the system. I will eat it for lunch.
What aspect of tabletop role-playing do you enjoy the most? Is it like the combat, the RP, the intrigue? What do you gravitate towards more?
I like the stories element, that it's a cooperative story element, which is really nice.
Yep.
But I tend to focus on the role-play, because to me, having role-play affect the story. Having a big idea, but then having role-play added to it.
Yep.
Is kind of a wild card dynamic, because especially as a DM or as a game master, I've done things where, okay, I've got this planned out and it's going to happen like this, and then the players decided to do something, not like, oh, I'm going to do something different, but like they'll do something I wasn't expecting and jump over like 4 different encounters that I had. I'm like, wow, that makes it more interesting now. Like now it's like you guessed what I was doing from the bat, and it makes sense because your character is paranoid as shit, or because your character is really, really smart about that, and you kind of tapped into that idea, which is pretty nice.
Oh, absolutely agree. As from a DM standpoint, we spend so much time building these worlds and building these encounters, and then the players just come and they just walk around it.
Yeah, which is great. And from a player perspective, it's like, I want to just enjoy this, and I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the DM planned, but I'm just going to play this character, and to watch everybody interact and like how different characters will gravitate towards one another, and like the stories that they have interpersonal relationships, let alone just like the overarching story of what's going on, is always interesting and fun, because it's like a TV show that you have no idea where it's going.
Exactly. And then and they with the player's conjecture, like, you have a story in the mind, the overall arc, you know what I mean? But there's so many times that like I've just the players are like, they'll start thinking, you'll give them a set of clues or breadcrumbs, and they're like, they completely draw the wrong conclusion, but that conclusion is better for the story. So let's just go with it, you know?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. So how do you feel about the setting of the campaign, cyberpunk in general?
I like cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is really good at telling stories, especially with science fiction. I like science fiction, but the name the Theastropub doesn't tip it off. But in science fiction in general, it tends to be either like super utopian or like space adventure or opera.
Right.
You know, it's all these kind of big scale things, and you can kind of have smaller scale stuff, but it's usually focused on like robots, space. Whereas like cyberpunk is much more gritty. It takes elements of the dystopian, like Mad Max future worlds, you know, these ruined nuclear hellscapes, and says, you know, let's add Star Trek to that and see what comes out of it. So it's less. I like that it tells stories which are real and gritty that people can like can like emulate with in today,
right?
And in a way that is more grounded, and yet you can still do a lot of allegories with those stories. And so I like that. And you know, who doesn't like robot arms and like cybernetic eyes? That shit's awesome.
Exactly. And for me as a DM and the Nexus administrator for this campaign, being able to build like a neighborhood that you guys are gonna have, I assume you're gonna have at some point some pride in, and to offer little subsets of stories. Like, it doesn't have to be a grandiose adventure, but you could be like, okay, this person in the neighborhood's having a problem. How do we go fix this? Not necessarily through combat, not necessarily through, you know, wiping out a gang, but how do we help this person within the system that we're working with? One of the things that I find when it comes to TTRPG is everything's such on an epic and grand scale.
Yeah.
And there's got to be like, there naturally has to be a progression for that. But some of the best stories that I've seen in games are little side stories where it's not an epic fight. It's not an epic arc of the campaign. It's, hey, we're deviating with this NPC to make a little side story. So I'm really excited to do that with you guys. So have you ever actually played in a cyberpunk based campaign before, or?
No, I've done modern campaigns before.
Okay.
They've never finished them, but I've participated in the kind of the modern settings before.
Excellent. So would you prefer a campaign like this versus fantasy, or what would you gravitate towards more?
I'm gonna be honest. I've played fantasy for most of my TTRPG life.
Yep.
And I'm bored of it. It's not bad. It's just oversaturated.
Oh, absolutely.
Like going into dungeons, slaying dragons, you know, finding a tavern and talking to a barkeep are like they're cliche and it's fun, but it's also really old.
Right.
Like it's classic TTRPG at this point. It's been around for almost 40 years, and seeing things that are not fantasy, things like cyberpunk or modern or space or some other kind of universe is always more intriguing to me at this point. It's like, let's try something different. Let's see if we can do the same thing, but with this setting. So
absolutely. And that's kind of my feeling when it comes to this is with my personal group, we played in a Pathfinder, you know, different campaigns for the last 15 years or so. And I'm like, I've always pushed, let's do a modern campaign because A, I've had a story to tell, and B, I've wanted to play in one. Like I want to be that sniper on the roof, you know, reaching out and touch somebody, or I want to be that hacker, or, you know, whatever. But you know, speaking from the same boat, I've been playing, you know, for a long time. I've been playing since like 5 or 6, and I've had some great DMs with some great stories, but I'm really excited for this kind of thing, just because it's a change. You know, it's not necessarily better; it's just different, right? So without ruining the story for everybody, can you give us a few details about your character in the upcoming campaign?
James Dunn is the sexiest hacker you will ever see, and he will tell you that to his face. He's a lover, not a fighter.
Okay.
And he's also not exactly the most motivated guy. He'll take the path of least resistance when it's possible, and everyone knows that. He is very much like a hanger-on, trend follower kind of guy.
Okay.
Who has done everything he can to not make a living by working. Everything he does, it just comes naturally to him.
Okay.
If it doesn't come naturally to them, he's not too fond of it. But when I say he's a lover, not a fighter, I mean he does not do well in tense situations where someone's threatening him. So we'll see. I'll tell you a little bit more than that. But like, don't expect him to be taking bar stools and swinging them at people or pulling guns at any time soon.
Okay.
He's quite not ready for that sort of thing.
Did you have any outside influences that you use for your character, or maybe inside influences, or you just drawing? Where are you drawing from for James Dunn?
James Dunn is in many ways just. I was thinking about like what's the typical heroic character in a story, even like a cyberpunk story. Like, you know, cyberpunk, you've got like the Major from Ghost in the Shell. She's just like a fucking badass. And everyone that's like oh, gritty noir detective or you know like you know, Blade Runner, you know, all these stories that you see this like it's like dark or broody or like really like combat focused, and that's cool. Even the hackers are like yeah, I'm in a smoky, you know, hacking. No, I was like, let's take the entire opposite of that. Let's find the dude who is kind of a wimp. He's kind of like he wants to fit in with the crowd, so he wants to be the cool kid, but he's lazy and a complete coward. So I was kind of like, let's do the opposite, because for me, it's always fun when you try to do different ideas with characters, characters that are not traditional, because they tend to change the narrative a little bit, and it also tends to force players to, you know, because everyone will then fall into that regular rhythm. Oh, he's a ex-soldier with, you know, 15 years of special ops experience, or he's a street punk. It's like they all tend to like fall into that, like, oh yeah, eventually they can grab a bat and beat someone's head in. And I wanted a guy who's like, no, he's not going to.
He's not that guy.
He is not that guy. And to see how other players will react to that, you know, like, you know, even just the simple discussions I've had with some of the other players about this is the idea of like throwing me in a closet and letting James Dunn and throw him in the closet and holding a gun and be like, shoot anyone who opens the door. And I'm like, you don't want him to do that. He'll just shoot you when you open the door because he's panicking. Luckily, he's terrible at it, so he might miss you.
He might completely miss you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I find when I'm building an NPC, when you know, a character in the story, I like, you know, obviously you're going to give him their natural attributes. This guy's good at shooting, this guy's good at hacking, right? But those character flaws, I feel like, are what really define, you know, turn somebody from a stat sheet into a character that people either love or hate. Those particularities that, and if you stay true to, especially if somebody stays really true to them, then it becomes a defining factor. And I absolutely love that, how it just takes those stats and turns it into a fully fleshed out character. So I'm really excited to put you in situations where you're gonna have to fight. I mean, or, you know,
I'm excited for it. I'm excited I'm excited to like cling to Loken like a backpack and be like, save me, British man.
Well, that that brings us to our next question. Which cast member do you think you'll gravitate towards the most, and which character do you think you'll have the most static with?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't have a lot of experience with a lot of these guys. I do think that Loken's character is going to, because I know Loken, I'll probably play off of him a little bit more, at least to start.
Okay.
And I think Doc and I, because Doc is the other hacker, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yep.
I think we'll have an interesting dynamic. I think it'll be the quippy, like, back and forth dynamic, because, you know, the whole like, I'm a hacker, you're a hacker, we're gonna fight, we're gonna talk about how big our hacker e-beans are, you know, with one another. And I'm like fairly certain that either Jack or Zero is just gonna hate me. They're just gonna be like, oh my fucking god, why is Dunn in the bar? He's just gonna get a bar fight, and then I'm gonna have to save him, you know. So I think the heavy combat oriented characters will probably end up hating me.
Okay. They'll be used to looking back for somebody, you know, to back them up, and you'll be like, bye guys.
Like, bye. Good luck, kids. Have fun storming the castle. You know.
Have you ever been to Boston?
I have. I went to PAX East twice.
Yes.
So, I can't remember where we stayed, but we stayed at 2 different places in both those times. Unfortunately, both of those times it was also cold as hell. It was like a blizzard. I think happened during it. It's literally
hell in the winter. So that is gonna help paint a picture. So you'll have when I say it's cold out and you guys are gonna have to dress accordingly. Like you understand, like it's not like, oh, I need a hoodie. You know what I mean? It's I
have all my warm clothes on and I still feel fucking cold. I've got 15 layers on and somehow my feet are still freezing, even though I have 4 pairs of socks and 2 boots.
Why do I live in a place where my face hurts from the wind?
Where I have to constantly put chapstick on while I'm inside,
right?
Let alone step outside and suddenly my face turns into a tomato.
So, do you have any plans to bring any cosplay to the stream for your character?
I have a little bit of plans.
Okay.
I have a few ideas. I'm trying to because of the aesthetic that I know you want to go for. I have ideas, but it's gonna vary because I look weird outside of this.
Okay.
Which is my normal stream attire.
Okay.
So we'll see. I'll see how it fits, and then we'll get to it. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. And the last thing from you, let's hear your best Boston accent.
Boston. I can't do Boston accent, but I'll try it. Harvard Yard.
Oh
Boston.
My God.
Yeah. I can Texas. I cannot do Boston.
All right.
Like apples? How about these apples? Oh, it's so bad.
And smash it right on the window. Smash it right on the window. So Paul, thank you so much for coming and hanging out today. I look forward to seeing James Dunn in the Nexus soon.
I'm looking forward to being James Dunn in the Nexus soon. So thank you for having me.
Have a great day, guys.